Hello YouTube, BlueMatona here, and welcome to a new episode of Game Guides, where we're going to be jumping in to the starting position guide for the Roman Scipii faction. They're one of the 3 Roman factions you can play as in the game. They start off in a really safe position with a lot of expansion opportunities, and let's dive in and check them out. Alright, so right at the start of the game, you're going to start with the Senate mission to take Syracuse. We'll dive into Senate interaction a little bit later, but that's this Greek city right here to your south on the island of Sicily. Pretty easy target if you want to go for it, and you have 10 turns to get there. So to start, you have 2 cities, your capital, Capua, and your secondary city here, Messana, on the island of Sicily. They're very protected. Capua has all of its borders surrounded by other Roman factions. You really have no threat from any other nation in the game to come after your capital. You could probably just move your troops out of there really quickly. We'll take a look in here as well. 4,800 population, close to the 6,000 threshold with a bunch of buildings to go. Good population growth at 4% as well. That should start off growing pretty strong. You also have a nice income and trade situation. You have wine in the province, which is a very good trade resource. And you're already going to be making 155 without a port or any additional trade agreements. Build that port, and you'll immediately jump up to almost 400 income from trade in the city. It's a very good starting point, and you should be able to use this as a place to pump out Hastati troops, move them to the front lines, and start your expansion. Messana is more your border town. It has less population and less population growth. You also don't have any trade resources in the province, and it doesn't start with a port either. So you'll see your trade income here is very meager at 11 to start the game, and you'll only jump up to 127 with a port. Probably worth still building that there, but this is definitely going to be a city that you're going to want to get military buildings going in right away, so you can train troops up here on the front lines to fight Greece, to fight Carthage, and to expand in other directions. Your armies. You start with 4. First and foremost, your faction leader here in Messana, Cornelius Scipio. His army is 3 units of Hastati, which is a good little bulk of infantry to immediately go and fight on the walls in Syracuse. Secondly, you have your faction heir positioned up here in Capua, another 2 units of Hastati, and you have 2 armies in the field here. Gaius Scipio leading a very small force with 1 unit of Hastati, and down here you have Quintus Scipio leading a little bit of a larger force with Velites, Roman archers, and Hastati. Starting with an archer unit is very strong and will help you here in the early game, especially as you go to siege some cities early on, so worth making sure you keep them nice and protected. You also can recruit a little bit of mercenaries. You have hoplites and peltists in this province, and up here in the north in Capua you have a Samnite mercenaries like the other Roman factions that you can pull in as just a little bit of a bolster to your troops early on. You also have this 1 navy. It's your 2 ships, your 2 bireme ships, and you have 1 spy, very nicely positioned down here by Messana, so you can use it on Syracuse and the other province here, Libyum, when you can eventually see it. And you have your diplomat up here in your home province of Capua. Finally, your diplomatic situation is standard with the other Roman factions. You start allied to them, basically, with your only enemies as the rebels. You will pretty quickly, though, be going to war with the likes of Carthage and Greece, and other factions that surround you. Probably those 2 right off the bat, and then we'll see where you expand from there. Alright, let's dive into family members. So, your faction leader, 54 years old, good management and influence. Also pretty good commands, but he's going to be a little bit older, so maybe not worth using him as a primary general. He does get management and personal security. Retinue boost here. You could move that to another general if you want, or if you wanted to just really use Cornelius Scipio in a city governor setting, you definitely could as well. If you want to focus more on the economic benefits of him with the management, maybe move him up here to Capua. If you wanted to use him as an additional general unit on the front line, you can do that too. Really no way to go wrong. You have your faction heir. Very solid general, 36 4 stars, 2 influence, so with no management, this guy is going to be a perfect general for the front lines. He can win battles with those command stars, help keep the cities he conquers happy with the influence, and he gets the Drill Master retinue, so 25% bonus to movement, and a discount on unit training costs. Probably early on, I would recommend using this general here in Capua for a few turns, train up some Hastati units at a slightly cheaper rate, and then use him to either come down here and support and reinforce in Sicily, maybe go after Carthage. There's a settlement here owned by Carthage on Sardinia, or you could use him to maybe go north and try to swoop Segestica and fight the Gauls ahead of the Julii faction and cut them off. So a few options there. You also have another general here, Gaius Scipio, same exact thing, very strong general, good command, good influence, very good traits overall here. Authoritarian is not the best. but you'll be able to use him as a good expansion general early on as well. And you have Quintus Scipio. Pretty much the same deal again. Command and influence, no management. So you really have 3 generals that can jump immediately into the field. This is why I don't think it's necessary for you to pull in your faction leader if you don't have to. But again, if you wanted the extra reinforcements, especially for some early conquests here, could be worth bringing them into the fight. Finally, looking at your family tree, you do start the game with 4 daughters. They're not particularly close to marrying age. It's going to take a few turns to get there. 11, 8, 6, and 2. So you'll get some additional generals that can marry into the family down the road, but none right off the bat. Okay, so let's talk faction uniqueness. The Scipii start with a really strong, probably the strongest, at least out of the Roman factions, temple set in the game. So you'll see here, if we go into the construction window, for either of your cities, you actually only have 2 options for temples. This is pretty atypical for Roman factions. Usually you'd have 3. And that's because the 3rd temple, the temple to Neptune, is locked behind having a port in the province. This is because it's actually a really strong temple, and I would recommend building it wherever you can. At its first 3 levels, it just gives public order bonus due to happiness, but once you get up to level 4, you can train a special naval unit, Corvus Quinquerim, if that's how you say it, and then once you get up to Pantheon, you can also train up the really strong Deseret, if that's how you say it as well, naval unit. So in your home provinces, you can build this temple set, and once you get to the higher levels, really just dominate the sea and pump out some really good naval units. Also, the other temples here, Saturn is your just pure public order temple until you get to the highest level, lets you train the Arcani, and the Temple of Vulcan gives some really nice upgrades to weapons, to armor, and to experience of troops trained in that city. So really what you have here is a pure public order play, a quality of land units, and a quality of naval units temple set. So pretty good overall. You can really do what you want with that. Also, you have the other Roman unique buildings, like you can build Colosseum and academies. I know that's not completely unique to Romans, but they're one of the factions that can do it. You also get the aqueducts and the Circus Maximus, etc., like other pretty high level buildings that you can train up in the game. Finally, like the other Roman factions, you also have the ability to train up some special units, like War Dogs and Incendiary Pigs, and you get your Onagers and Ballistas and Scorpions, those other long-range units that you can train up more down the road. So, early expansion. We're going to turn off Fog of War for this so we can see the area around us a little more clearly. Right off the bat, Carthage and the Greeks are your targets. You want to go after Syracuse because of the Senate mission, but you do have 10 turns to do it. And the Libium over here, the Carthaginian city, starts very poorly defended with just wooden walls. So what I would probably recommend for your early expansion and key moves is take your army that's here in Sicily and don't declare war on the Greeks right away. Instead, immediately move that army over to Libium, take that away from Carthage, and then go after Syracuse at some point within the next 10 turns when it's most advantageous to you. This is because you're really not going to fight any other Greek cities here in the early game. The other Greek cities are all the way over here in the east. They're not going to really send troops over here to fight you, most likely. They could, but probably not. So there's really no rush for you to immediately go after Syracuse. Whereas going after the Carthaginian towns and weakening them right off the bat and blitzing Carthage could be a really good strategy. Carthage is usually not very well defended, and if you could get over here and take Corallus, Carthage, Thapsus, and Libium right off the bat, you basically eliminate Carthage from the game, or at least from your kind of immediate competitive area, other than their one city over here in Spain. Also, what could be a nice strategy is to take your units up here in Capua, because you really don't need to leave any army here. Again, there's no threat in this area. Take these units, rush up to Segestica, maybe take Segestica, cut off the Julii. If you can get Patavium and Mediolanium, these are really valuable provinces. You can go to war with the Gauls right off the bat, completely stop the Julii from being able to expand, and ultimately you could, in theory, if you wanted to sweep down the coast, get Segestica, get Salona, maybe also send a quick force over to get Apollonia and completely cut off your Roman allies, setting you up well for expansion throughout the game. Long-term goals, well, you're obviously going to want to take North Africa. This is your intended targets that the game tries to point you towards. They want you to go after Carthage and Numidia here and take out these areas. You could go over to Spain. You don't really need to. I think a good long-term goal would be take the North African valuable provinces, try to cut off your Roman neighbors, and really focus on expanding over here into Greece. This is such a nice set of cities to have if you can get it, and you should be able to send some troops across once you're at war with the Greeks. Take Syracuse, ferry a fleet over, start in here, take Sparta, and then move up and take the rest of these settlements. I would probably take your diplomat and work to get maybe a trade agreement with Macedon off the bat. Maybe you could actually go get a trade agreement with the Spain country. You could even do it with Numidia if you don't have any intention of going and taking these vast provinces over here, which really aren't necessarily worth taking because they're so hard to control. There's so many rebels. Go get a trade agreement with Egypt. You get some great opportunities here for long-term expansion. But from the short term, try to cut off your Roman neighbors. Really, you probably should be able to get Apollonia and Segestica before your other Roman countries get there, and then turn focus and take out Carthage as quickly as you can. So I think you end up in a pretty good spot here with the Scipii. I've never played a campaign as them before, and I'm looking forward to actually doing that with the first 10 moves video and kind of diving into how to start a campaign as the country. I think it would be pretty fun. Also, one last point, you do have a volcano here. At some point, a few turns into the game, it will erupt and deal pretty significant damage to your troops and population in the province. So I would recommend getting your generals out of Masana as quickly as possible. Make sure you don't have at least any family members living here or any really valuable units. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you liked the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And as always, I look forward to seeing everybody in the next video. Have a good one.